Okay, so this is what we got. If you saw the other video, in place of a Rivian for a loaner, I will preface this and say this is a really nice loaner. So I have no complaints on that front. I do wish it was an EV, but I understand Rivian's pretty exclusive as far as three-row EVs go at the moment. This is actually more expensive than the Rivian, and not even remotely as nice. It does have more passenger space, no denying that. Okay, so in the Wagoneer, the Wagoneer L or whatever this is, you do have the USB and USB-C here. In the Rivian, you get the USB-C, not USB, and you can move your seat back, the recline, with the buttons. Air vent in a very similar place to the Rivian. That said, these seats are not heated like they are in the Rivian. So you're gonna get a little trade-off. I do have plenty of room. There's no denying this is more spacious inside. You could get 2 adults back here comfortably, 3 in a pinch. And that's with the center seat kind of moved as far up as I would be comfortable with in that position. So with the front 2 seats in my position, I'd say I have about an extra 2 inches back here of knee room this way, but this is slightly higher, so your feet are more down, your knees aren't quite so high up. So for an adult in the 3rd row, this would be a little bit better. But again, no heated seats. The captain's chairs in the middle do have heated seats. They're not cooled, just like the Rivians are heated, not cooled in the middle. And then the front are heated and cooled. In the Wagoneer, you do also have 110. So in theory, I could plug the vacuum in here and run it. And then you've got a 12 volt for some reason. I don't think people are really using those anymore. But you do have USB-C and USB, which in the Rivians are right here and right there as well. Getting out of this is actually kind of funny. So the door feels further back than it should be. I'm assuming to give more room up front. But you open the door, and then because of the sculpted out seat here, it feels like my foot can't swing out the door. I have to actually scooch back and then just barely have enough room to get my feet through and out. That might be a nitpick, and again, different people are going to prefer different things. I do prefer the way the seat moves, if it'll do it. There it goes. I prefer this because then seat bases and stuff can stay in place. And access through this way behind the seat is better than the Rivian's access, but not in a big way. So I'd say your trade-off of having tougher access here, so it's more difficult to get in this way, easier to get in this way, whereas the Rivian's easier to get in that way and more difficult to get in this way. I don't think it has any more cargo space at all than the Rivian does, because it's all back there. There's no frunk. Okay, so this was everything I was able to get in the Rivian. In the Rivian, I could have gotten an extra pack and play or something, maybe some soft bags, and I could do the same here. I could get another pack and play here, maybe even, probably wouldn't be able to get another one of these, but maybe if I really squeeze things right and had stuff kind of ready to fall out here, I could maybe get another suitcase on top of this one. I will say this is really pointed out. The benefit of having that tailgate right here in the Rivian is this keeps trying to fall out on me. And in the Rivian, that tailgate holds it in place. So much bigger trunk, but there's no frunk and there's no basement. So it's really about the same size. Okay, let's get everything out. So I could probably get a couple more real soft bags or like a blanket or two back here in here, but this is not a basement like in the Rivian. The noises aren't even nice. Like that's a Casio watch sounding beep. But I got the same amount of stuff in, and I had about the same amount of room left over that I could have filled with other odds and ends after my main luggage. This is horrendous, this fake wood. I was 50-50 on the Rivian wood. My wife thinks it looks awful. She thinks it looks like an old man car. And the first thing she said when she got in this yesterday was, "Oh, this is an old man car." Same thing. This is just terrible. This is like, I don't know, the cheapest fake wood you could possibly find on the crappiest piece of furniture off Temu or something. Like this is all clearly just a sticker, and this is definitely going to peel off at some point. It just is. This vinyl and the stitching, it's exactly identical to my 2012 minivan. This is the door from a 2014 Dodge Grand Caravan. You can see the stitching is identical. It hasn't held up that well. And the wood trim is actually nicer in a 2014 Dodge Grand Caravan than it is in a 2024 Wagoneer L. That's just, in a car this expensive, it's really not a nice material. And I don't think it's going to be that durable either. Some of this stuff is okay. Like this has a tiny bit of squish to it. It's a little bit softer. The texture is really ugly and old though. And right here, like this doesn't do it. But this is just terribly cheap. It's nasty. The sound system, I don't think is as good. It might just be because this is an enormous space to fill with sound. There's no pano roof, which I don't like, but my kids always do, so they were disappointed about that. The center console storage is good. That's fine. But then up here, this is such a waste of space. Like there's no area down here to put your whole backpack or anything. So what's even in there? Why is all that space gone? The wireless charger is down here, and then this doesn't need to be here. This can be like the Rivians, it's in the screen. The drive stalk is here. So it's just bad use of space, I feel like. Most vehicles these days have space down here to put stuff. And that's kind of a miss, I think. Okay, so a lot of these controls, in fact, none of these controls are intuitive. I have driven vehicles with Uconnect with the buttons back here before. There's 3 on each side behind right here at the bottom of the back of the steering wheel. They do different things than they did in the vehicles I drove with Uconnect. So it just doesn't feel very intuitive. There's lots of buttons here, and they don't seem to do the things I expect them to do. Like I kept thinking this would reduce the distance for adaptive cruise control yesterday. It was not doing that. I don't know if that's because this is a rental or there's a settings issue, or that's just not what that button does. But it was a bit odd. Okay, so I'm sure I did something wrong there, but I had to press that twice. Some of these things, like the buttons and the layout of everything, you're going to get used to if you own this. Again, for my money, I'm very value conscious. And for my money, this and all of this, it's not where I see the value for my family. Again, the ride control and quality is just not what I would choose for my family. It's not what we would like. Everyone's different, and that's part of what makes the human race great, right? So driving wise, it's not nice to drive. and it would be a nightmare to try and park somewhere. It feels very ponderous. My Explorer, my 2017 Explorer felt more ponderous than it was, and this feels like that on a bigger level. My 23 Highlander, you felt very nimble, and you know, it was the same size as the Explorer, but it felt like I could feel the car better. I could tell where I was on the road more easily. The Rivian, I love. It is genuinely a thrilling, engaging drive compared to this, which isn't really what I'm looking for. I like generally a kind of floaty ride and a bit of isolation there. This is so much that it feels like I have a blindfold over one eye and one arm tied behind my back while I'm driving. Like, it just kind of feels very ponderous. Like, I'm not quite sure where everything is. Again, if you drove this daily, I'm sure you'd get used to it. As a loaner vehicle, while my Rivian is being serviced, this is really great, right? Because I have another vehicle I can daily drive instead of getting this horrendous fuel economy. But as an apples to apples comparison to a Rivian, the Rivian is an expensive vehicle, right? Like all 3-row large SUVs are for families, that you actually want to spend any time in. But it's less expensive than the Wagoneer or the Wagoneer L, and it's good value, or what I would consider good value for me, my family, and my situation. But that is a generation ahead. It's decades ahead to drive and be in and experience and own compared to this Jeep. It would be a hard sell, I think, for most people. As far as I'm aware, these aren't selling well at dealer lots. In general, Stellantis products are not selling well. There's some stuff going on there. I don't know that it's necessarily because of bad products, but this is, if I was going a traditional ICE route, I loved the drivetrain in the Expedition, but the interior was bad. The seats are really flat, so totally the opposite of these. It was okay, but the trunk space is really small in the standard Expedition, which is what I would get. I wouldn't get the big long version like this Wagoneer L. But I'd probably go with the Tahoe. The seats were comfortable. Everything made sense. It was intuitive. And just a much better thing to drive than this. This is like basically a generation ahead of the 24 Tahoe and Expedition. So, but it still feels like a generation behind those two. And I believe there's a 2025 Tahoe and Expedition coming out. They're going to be even further improved in theory. So this just doesn't feel like it's worth the price. I know I was excited when these first came out. Now I've gotten to try one, and honestly, I thought I'd like it. And I really, really don't. So everyone's got different taste and all the rest of it. And everyone's looking for something different. So certainly I'm not knocking people that have bought one. They probably just have different use cases than I do, and different preferences. So for me, I was thinking there would be a lot more cargo room in this. There's not. There's more passenger space for sure, but the tech, the driving experience, it really drags it down. It feels very, very old and cheap, which is a bit disappointing. As a loaner, this is a great vehicle. I'm not going to complain about it. It's going to allow me and the kids to get out over the weekends while we don't have the Rivian. Hopefully there are only 1 or 2 weekends that I don't have the Rivian. I'm definitely eager to get it back. That thing, jumping again from the Rivian to this just reminds me of why I bought the Rivian, because when I first drove it, I had that experience. It is mind-blowingly better than its competitors. And yes, I would consider the Wagoneer L and the Wagoneer and the Tahoe and the Suburban and the Expedition Max, I would consider those competitors for this. In this version, there are different versions of the Wagoneer that can tow. I don't know what the max towing capabilities are on this, but in this version, it only tows like 6,100 pounds. That's pretty poor. So again, the Rivian can tow more. It's like a spaceship compared to a Cessna. It's just so, they both, they can both do similar things, but one is just so much better. So I get that it's huge. The exterior dimensions are just ginormous. Again, it doesn't have more cargo space, though. It does have more passenger space. But it's still not the one I would pick for a long cruise, even with all of my kids. Because it does okay over front to back, movements like expansion cracks and joints in concrete. It does okay. But if there is any side to side motion whatsoever, the whole thing, it's crazy. And if you hit a big impact front to back, it's like you can feel, it's like a kid, with an old sheet of metal or something, like flipping it round and round, like that noise. Because you feel it through the whole chassis, like a bell, like it just reverberates through the whole thing. So you keep feeling it for a good couple seconds after you've hit an impact of just your chassis moving. And yesterday I hit, it wasn't even a big pothole. It was just a sort of regular size, but the gap here actually clapped. The door and the B or A pillar here clapped. Like that was kind of a lot. Also, because it's so big and so long, and it's got such street tires, which you can get in a Rivian too. But because it's so long, when I'm coming up a very tight turn from a flat road to uphill at the bottom of my driveway, it actually spins out a tire every time. It's got more passenger space and it's got CarPlay, but it's more expensive. I looked up, I do about 1,000 miles a month so far in my Rivian, which isn't a ton. But even that, at the average gas prices, according to the internet in San Diego, so 32.87 times 365, you're getting close to 12,000 miles there, which is 1,000 miles a month, like I have been doing. The average I've been getting in the Wagoneer is 12.5, which means at local costs currently, that's $4.50 a gallon. That's $4,300 per year I would be spending on gas with a Wagoneer L. And with the R1S, I'm getting a 1.7 average per kilowatt hour. And at my price for time of use, 0.17, if I was paying for it, which I'm not because of the solar, that would cost me $1,100, $1,200 a year. So I'd save $3,000 driving the R1S over a Wagoneer L. Just at 1,000 miles a month. Whereas again, my Rivian is covered, the fuel is covered by my solar panels, so I'm not paying anything for that. So I guess what I'd say is this feels like it was designed and intended to be upscale, but everything is done really cheaply. It feels like a Temu version of something. The plastic is horrible. There's a lot of piano black that's not nice piano black. It's pretty cheap looking. The screen is too small. The dash material is not nice. I feel like everything in here is sort of, I don't know, like they probably made a really nice one and then the pencil pushers came out and cut corners, and it's not what it should have been, especially for the price. I would say for the cost of this thing, for an internal combustion engine vehicle as well, for the cost, everything in here should be nicer. The nicest material in here is, you know, I'd say that's probably the steering wheel is really nice. That seems like it's real leather. The nicest material in here is about as nice as the worst material in the Rivian. This would be a tough sell.